Good morning, I'm Frank Powers, and this is Open for Business, the program where I network with business owners, the bosses in charge of the startups, storefronts, and services in the Southwest. Our entrepreneurs are educating you on how they impact our community, and they are here to give you insight into their ideas. Let's add some new contacts today. Trust Your Rust. Founded in July 2017, Ridpath Metal Craft specializes in custom perimeter fencing. They design and install unique, tailor-made solutions to meet the specific needs of every project. Committed to quality, craftsmanship, and exceptional customer service, they pride themselves on delivering outstanding results and seamless communication. And we're going to see how seamless that communication is, because sitting right here with me is Adam Ridpath of Ridpath Metal Craft. Adam, welcome to Open for Business.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited because, again, I love talking to business owners. That's the point of this whole program. And again, you're a bit of an artist. I was talking to you off air. You're downplaying it a little bit. You're sculpting metal. You're a metal worker.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Yes.
It's a lot of fences and gates as you're trying to downplay. But I'm looking at your website, and we'll look at it together, because some of these are works of art. Sometimes they're the gates where it's like, that's a mountain range and there's a wolf on it. There's the moon. You got some of these amazing things. You got a lot of perfect symmetrical fencing. Take pride in that. You were again saying, what we do with the fences and the gates. There is something to be said about being able to bend metal perfectly over and over and over again.
I can understand the appreciation there. That's why I like it so much. Over time it does become work, but you do have to have a passion for what you do in order to keep going at it.
Absolutely. How did you get started? Were you always into some sort of sculpting growing up?
Yeah, I just wasn't a good student in school. I was always a good kid, just wasn't good at school.
Sure.
So I always gravitated towards working with my hands. Wood shop, metal shop. After I graduated, that kind of stuff went away. So it's getting harder to find skilled labor. I think it might be slowly coming back in some of our schools and whatnot. But, in my 20s, I worked for a small fabrication shop here in town. They're no longer in business. But that's really where I found my passion to work with metal. And I kept kind of doing it on the side, here and there for about, off and on for 10 years. And then I started my own business. Started in 2017, and we've been going strong ever since. We've learned a lot along the way, made a lot of mistakes. It's not easy. We're still trying to get over the hump so that we can have more employees and more steady contracts coming in. There's plenty of business out there, and I know that if we keep marching, we'll get to that point.
I believe it. A lot of people got to keep these javelinas out. We need more gates and fences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they are a nuisance, that's for sure.
When you jumped in and took the plunge, what made you feel like you were ready to kind of all right, I've kind of done this enough and hobbied enough and side worked it enough as a side hustle? What made you be like, I'm opening this business?
I made a mistake at my previous employer, and straight up, I got fired for it.
Yeah.
And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because from that point on, I decided, hey, I think it's time to cash out whatever I have in my 401k and just get some equipment and get going, just start my own thing. And I've been doing it ever since.
Was that scary for you?
Absolutely. It was a big sacrifice for me and my fiance at the time. She was working quite a bit to try and help us out. I was working at Ace Hardware and trying to do whatever I could, trying to build the business. And eventually we got a little momentum, and things are going well.
That's what it takes. I went to this small business seminar at Startup Tucson at a point, and they make you do these kind of character profiles by answering certain questions. And certainly I'm like a risk taker. I fell in that career. I'm a gambler. Now, I don't actually gamble, but when it comes to taking a chance, I'm that type of guy. How do you find your personality to be? Are you a risk taker? Do you do that sort of thing? Do you bet on yourself?
I think when you're starting a business, obviously it's a big risk, and you have to be willing to sacrifice personal time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to sacrifice recreational expenses, and you just have to buckle up and eat at home and go on the cheap. You know, that's just how you have to live for a while before you get the ball really rolling. But yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to take risk. It's just part of it.
Yeah. And the thing that got me was I cashed out my 401k as well, and reached what I call escape velocity at a point. I was like, I did it. I don't think I'm going to have to go back and quote unquote work someone else's cash register again.
Right.
Yep. And since 2017, same year, same thing. I absolutely have been able to make my interesting little side hustle into my career, even including this, because I used to volunteer at a radio station and do it for free. but that's how I built up my resume to get hired at the real radio station.
Well, that's kind of how Joe Rogan started with UFC, right?
Yes.
I mean, he went on for free. They liked him, and he stayed on for however many years it was before they started paying him.
Yep. Isn't that fascinating? Because sometimes that's what it takes. And I always say this to a lot of folks, volunteer somewhere. It's where you find maybe what you're going to find your passion in, and then you turn that volunteer job into, they hire you.
Sure.
Yep. I find that to be a thing. So
Yeah,
talking about-
apprenticing is
Yes.
another one.
I was going to say, mentors are so important. So having an apprentice, I was going to ask if that's come into your life or if you've had mentors in your life on your way up, learning this skill. Because first there's the Metalcraft skill, which is something else. Then there's being a businessman, which is totally a different set of skills that, just like you're saying, didn't do the best in school. So it's like, oh, you got to do accounting? Or you got to find someone like, who's going to help me with my accounting? Because it's your job to make great fences.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and at the beginning, you don't care about accounting. You just
Yeah.
care about paying your bills.
That's right.
But now my wife handles the books for me. She handles a lot of the business aspects of the business on top of a full-time job.
Wow.
And she's a full-time student.
Wow.
So she works really hard. She's done a lot to help sustain this business. You can't do it alone.
No.
Whether you're paying someone to help you or you've got a family member or a wife like me or a husband for all the ladies out there, like you need help. And I still need help. You can't have all the success without whether it be a mentor or a family member or someone close to you to help you.
Yeah, especially with what you're doing. It's a lot of heavy lifting. You need a real team, an actual physical team.
Yeah. We got to have healthy, able bodies out there working.
Yep.
And it's not easy, especially this time of year in
I
the
know.
summertime. It's pretty rough. There's a lot of companies out there that are working 10 hours a day in this stuff. you
Wow.
know. And I try to limit that, try to start early and end early. And I know there's a lot of guys out there that are going till 5 o'clock. So either way, it's just hard. It's just a hard life sometimes.
I believe it. When did you hire your first employee, and what was that like? To be like,
Oh,
that's
boy.
a big jump, right?
We've had employees come and go, considering we're such a small business, small family business. But I'd say 2 or 3 years after being in business is when I started reaching out to friends or people that I knew that, maybe could use a little extra money or they had extra time. And now I have kind of a partnership with a longtime friend. He does his own thing. He's a Finnish carpenter. But when he gets slow, or he's just willing to work with me if I need some help. We do I am looking into recruiting some high school kids out of Mica Mountain High School because they have a great welding program.
Nice.
And it's something that I'm just now looking into, and I haven't really had a chance to research it all that much. But I have had some kids from Mica Mountain help me a couple times as of late, the last couple months. It's hard, though, when they were just trying to graduate high school. It is hard to find employees, I will say.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge for most businesses right now.
That's interesting. Your business, though, could really appeal to someone who they want to make their life. I want to be a blacksmith. I want to figure out some of this stuff. So if we can connect a dot, if you know someone out there that is into this, because I have a couple of friends that have done this, gotten into it, and gotten better at it. They found welding. And
right. And another part of it, too, is a lot of people want full-time work.
Uh-huh.
They want full benefits. And
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
I can't guarantee someone full-time work. We're still trying to get over that hump. There's a lot of competition in this town, and which is a good thing. That's healthy for the economy. But it is hard to get long-term employees if you don't have work scheduled for a year out.
Yeah, I know. That's a big deal.
So that's something that these bigger guys have figured out, and they've got those relationships with bigger contractors, other contractors. And again, we're still working at that.
I find that there's a lot of room here in town for people, I'll just say our size. I think you're a little ahead of me when it comes to business ownership, but businesses our size. A lot of people, small businesses like, oh, it's 350 employees. Like, oh, no, hang on. What about,
No.
right?
Yeah.
What about our actual small businesses here in town? What about our mom and pops of every style and variety, every business on 4th Avenue, all these stores that are owned in restaurants? They're not going to have hundreds of employees.
No.
Small business.
We're truly a family business.
Yes.
Between my wife and I have a 3-year-old son that I'd love to teach, this trade to. Maybe he'll be smarter than me and find a way to blow the business up when he gets to that age. But for now, it's my wife and I and, some people we know that can kind of help us get through. That's just kind of where we're at.
Hey, it's a good place to be at.
Absolutely.
Like I say.
I mean, just because we're small doesn't mean we're not capable.
Right. You're probably more capable in my eyes because of what it is. It's a smaller guy that has the attention to detail. That isn't running
Less
to go
overhead.
To the next thing. Yes.
Lots of, no fires to put out all day long.
Yep.
So it allows us to focus on the job, that's for sure.
Yep.
But we can always get the equipment we need to do 500 feet of fence or 1,000 feet of fence. Like that's not a problem. It's, as long as I can have one or two helpers, we can get something done.
That's the other thing I find about, and that I promise when I talk to people, because they'll come up, how much this? I'm like, I'm just one guy. I'm not a company. Let's figure out what it's going to cost.
Right.
Absolutely, and that's your clear communication that you're probably talking about, because it's you. And that's a benefit that a lot of folks don't realize when they are dealing with these bigger things, and then something goes awry, and then they can't get anyone on the phone, people disappear.
Yeah, and we're trying to bust into that commercial market a little more. We're licensed to do commercial work. We've done commercial work in the past. But to develop a relationship with one of the bigger general contractors in town, it's very difficult.
Interesting.
They want you to fill out a questionnaire. They want you to give them all your insurance information, your workman's comp, and they just want a ton of information before they're willing to even put you on their vendor list. And I understand why, a lot of liability, in the welding business. So they want to make sure that you're legit and you can provide some safety in the event of of an accident. Thank God we've never had to file a claim on anything. But to break into that commercial market is a challenge.
Have you made a commercial? Do you have commercials yet? Like TV commercials?
No TV commercials. We have some radio spots. And we're doing the online social media stuff. But nothing on TV yet. We're not there yet.
It's easier than you think. You'd be surprised. It's cheaper than you think. You'd be surprised. It's making a commercial that costs a lot of money. To air it is not. Yeah, that's something to think about. Don't think TV is a barrier. It's actually, I think, more.
No, and I don't know if we could handle. I have a buddy who owns another business here in town.
Yeah,
he cleans air ducts and sweeps chimneys, and he's been in business for a long time. Very, very good businessman. But they did a commercial one time, and they were just blown up.
Yeah,
and he might do it again in the future. Who knows? But he's a pretty busy guy. He's good.
Yeah,
so I don't want to step out of my comfort zone, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting a little overwhelmed.
That is interesting.
I guess that would be a good problem to have.
Yes, because what you do then, just business advice, you don't want 80 customers. You want 8 big customers. Right? Because it's also the person paying the least is the one complaining the most sometimes.
Right, exactly.
Right? And obviously, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So let's talk about, where people can find you and get in contact with you, and talk about the services that you provide, because you can go look at all this great stuff over at ridpathmetalcraft.com. And I'm looking at this great portfolio of work of completed projects. You got a lot of great fences here, right? Yeah, go ahead. You got the mouse. Go for it.
Sure.
So you got a lot of great fences. There's a lot of awesome doors, and it's intricate designs and patterns. Oh, look at that. I love that chain. That's neat.
Yeah, that was a customer. Again, he had a special request. He already had the chain. We actually welded every link together.
Wow, it's a chain banister upstairs. So go to this website. You got to see some of this work. That is the thing. And great thing about competition in town is that, yes, it does keep it fair, but then with you, a picture speaks 1,000 words.
I hope so.
Yes, absolutely it does. Even that, look at that staircase. That's phenomenal.
That was towards the beginning of the...
What makes you, now where do you get that pattern?
It just came out of nowhere. The customer liked it, and we just went with it.
See, artist. See, this is an artist. He's trying to downplay the artist part of it, right? Because he's a Hercules that walked in here. All right. If your son grows up to be half the man you are, it looks like he'll be about 3'2". Okay. That is excellent work. Don't downplay the creativity, because again, I'm an arty guy. So when I was getting you in today, I'm like, we're gonna have a lot of fun to talk about.
No, I appreciate that.
Yes,
that was a fun one.
Keep on scrolling down there, because I was going to ask about this. So what is this big, is it an awning?
It's a pergola.
Oh, what's that?
So it's a sunshade. It does let sun in. This was a gentleman's backyard. We did a lot of work at this particular property.
Yeah.
Pool fence, some perimeter fence, gates. And this right here is a pergola that we did for him. It was basically a steel frame. So we have steel posts with a steel frame all the way around on the top. And then we made brackets so that he could put some 2x6s in some slots up there to create some shade slats.
Wow. very intricate. And you might look at, oh, very simple. No, but that's very intricate, but also beautiful. And that's what I was talking a little bit about before. There is something to be said about precision and symmetry when it comes to design and being able to pull it off via welding. Stop downplaying your skills here.
Okay.
And
I will. I'll do the best I can. I try to be as humble as I can.
you don't need to be humble. Let's talk about your products and services and why you're the best and the competition can't keep up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like the sound of that. These are some homemade planter boxes that we made for him. They came out real nice.
Yeah.
I think we used 14 gauge steel plate for that. Came out real nice. I mean, they'll last forever.
That's important.
There's no bottoms on them because you don't want them to rot out.
Okay.
But you just, you make your rectangular shapes, whatever the dimensions are, and line them up. Here he had a really good idea, and we did it for him. He had a vision, and we made it come true.
That's excellent. I mean, that's what you want to hear.
And this is the front of that same house, actually. We built these Bahama shutters.
Wow.
That house faces directly west.
Okay.
So in the summertime, well, every single day, really, they just get brutal sun. So he decided to have a design out of, raw steel and to let it rust, trust your rust.
Yep.
And then later on, we did the awning over the house because, believe it or not, this customer actually moved out of the house.
Okay.
And they moved away. And I was actually in the neighborhood on another project, and I stopped by and knocked on the door. I already knew that customer had moved away, and I just introduced myself, and I said, hey, we did all the metal work at this house. And so she wanted an awning to protect her Amazon packages.
Look at that.
From the rain. So the slogan, trust your rust, that actually came from my wife. She created that one. So kudos to her. However, we live in a perfect arid climate to let your steel rust. Obviously, we'll paint something if need be. Obviously, HOAs prefer paint. The problem with paint, though, especially on a steel fence or something that's really in the sun, is after a few years here in southern Arizona, it just doesn't hold up, and you need to repaint it. It starts cracking, peeling, chalking up. So I always recommend that if you can let it rust, let it rust. It's a beautiful patina. It's very Southwest.
Yep.
It's very popular right now. And again, we just live in the perfect climate to do that. It'll last many, many years. There's a difference between surface rust and rot. Okay, it's not rusting from the inside. It's not rotting away. So you'll get many years out of it, even if it rusts.
Yeah, that's something to think about, is the longevity of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll last my lifetime.
Yep. I mean, that's a big deal.
Over here, these were some really heavy-duty steel tables that we made.
Yeah.
We had a customer that she had some Buddha statues out of something that she got at the Gem and Mineral Show.
Yeah.
So she wanted something proper to show them off.
People walk out of that thing with just like,
Yeah,
I need somewhere to put this meteorite. Hang on.
Yeah, and I should probably put some more pictures on the website. This right here was just a basic dog kennel for a customer.
That's real nice.
Yeah, that raises.
And custom.
Yep, custom to their dimensions and what they needed. These were some screen doors, some security screen doors that we do.
Again, I love the patterns, great sun patterns.
Yeah, look at that one there.
That's wild.
Yeah, so this particular customer, her house had already had window guards on it with that same design.
Okay.
So she had like kind of a remodel in her backyard and had some sliding screen doors put on. So we matched what they had.
Okay.
And all these different scroll works. That was originally done in the 60s, the original window guards. So the theme kind of is from that era.
It looks very 60s.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like to talk about networking a lot on the show, because that's an important part of this. And I feel like for a business like yours, and even again, just you being friendly enough to go back to that house and be smart enough to just, I'm not afraid to knock on the door. Hey, how's it going?
Right.
Just be a friendly person. Do you go or belong to any of these networking groups for businesses, or go to any of these events?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. So last week I went to my first networking event.
Boom, tell me about it.
It was very interesting. I had a good time. I don't know if our trade was the right fit for us, but that's why you go to these things to try and figure that out. I still made great connections. We went to the Saba booth that was there, and that's really, I think, our next goal. I probably should have hit that up a couple of years ago, but
Saba Home Show.
Yeah, and I think it's just time to get in with them and see what they can, who they can introduce me to, because they're more along the lines of construction and new buildings and stuff like that. So that's kind of, that's our direction now as far as networking goes, but it does help to know people.
Yes, it does. It's what this place is. It goes back to the size of what I was talking about before. That is what we have here, is that the size of this place and the size of our businesses, you can just go say hello, make a connection, a thing, and then you're their guy.
And it's really important, you know, it's really important to just straight up hustle.
Yes.
You know, if you're driving by somewhere, say a GC's office, go park, get out of the truck, introduce yourself, go to the lobby, give them your cards, let them know what's going on. Say, hey, who can I talk to get on your vendor list? But, you know, contractors, rental property managers, you know, those are good places to start. You know, the residential side is always going to be there. There's always people that need fences and gates, but to try and reach out to bigger clients for bigger projects, you know, you need to go with, you know, the contractors and, you know, property managers.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Saba is a good place where you're going to get connected. I did the Saba Home Show many years. It's a good place to be. I stood out in that crowd with what my business is, which was interesting, and it would lead to something. And that's all that counts, right? You do something that leads to, if you get one client out of it, it pays for that whole thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the point.
Absolutely.
Yep. Invest in yourself and definitely invest in your network.
And that's a big risk, you know, but the reward can be very high.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why it's important to take risk. Especially with marketing and advertising and stuff like that.
You got to not be able to be afraid to go out there, shake hands, meet people, go to events, and just be yourself. Just be a friendly person.
Right. It may not work in the first month. You know,
it won't.
It won't.
But then that's fine.
You know, but you know, you got to start somewhere.
Yes.
You know,
and good for you for starting the other day. Like, I love that, like, actually just the other day, because I have found that that's been my secret to success. Besides volunteering at things, it has been just go to these types of events. And I am not afraid to walk up to a whole table of people and none of them are talking. And I'll just go like, so what do we all do? Hi, how's it going? And just open that conversation up.
Right.
Because that's what we all know that's what we're there to do. Don't be embarrassed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I always recommend that. I always recommend going to any
That's
sort
the
of
whole
network.
point, is to introduce yourself, strike a conversation, meet as many people as you can, you know, have a drink or two.
Yep.
Go to the hors d'oeuvre table they have there and pick out something fancy and try to enjoy yourself.
And enjoy yourself. That is the other part of it too. It takes a minute.
Right. Once you realize you've expressed everything that you can, just stop and start to listen.
Yep.
Some people are really good at letting people just go and go and go. And then they're at the same time, they're listening to make sure that they're not being oversold or being told a bunch of BS. You know? So, you know, just tell them what matters and stop and listen.
Heck yeah. Good advice right there. And advice, even you could tell I'm a chatty Cathy. Staying quiet as long as I can. Like, listen. Just listen close.
Yep.
Because you are going to get more out of that than most anything. Especially a tip. Especially a tip. Follow a lead. Again, sometimes I get a tip. I'm looking for an answer. Oh, I don't know, but so-and-so might have it. Most people quit there. They take that as a no. Instead, follow up on so-and-so, and then so-and-so is going to tell you about this one, and this one's going to tell about that one, and that one's going to say, I've got what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And that's how it works. You got to follow those little lily pads that are clues to your next client, and that's some of it. So I asked this of everybody. I feel like we did kind of cover it, but let's just get a defined answer. Like, define success.
Oh, boy.
Right?
Yeah, that's a hard one. You know, it's not always about the money, but that's definitely, you know, at least 50% of it. But relationships are really important. With a good relationship with a good client can bring more work, and just having integrity is so important.
I was going to say integrity a moment ago as we were talking about that.
Yeah, integrity is so important. One of the compliments I get from most of my customers is how responsive I am. So, you know, if something comes up, I'll call them, you know, whatever it may be, a slight change, a price change, whatever it is. I'm very much in communication with my customers from beginning to end. And that's something that I think a lot of contractors fail at. You know, you hear that complaint a lot from people like, hey, I haven't heard from this guy. You know, it's been a couple weeks. We've already paid him, you know, some money to get started. And they're just not responsive enough. It drives me crazy if I have to hire a contractor for something and you can't get a hold of them. You know, we've been there.
Yeah.
So I just try to communicate the best that I possibly can. It's really important, and people really appreciate it.
I believe it. Communication is key. Transparency is key. Goes with integrity to a degree.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Your reputation counts for so much, and it's important. It's important to
Absolutely.
back the work you're doing, be the person that you're presenting on your website. Even your customer reviews, they say exactly that.
You're not going to get the money without the integrity. It goes hand in hand. We're not rich by any means. We're just trying to sustain, pay our bills, and keep the clients coming in. We just want to sustain work for as long as we can. You're not going to do that without integrity. You're just not.
No, it sounds like that you're even growing at the pace you want to grow, which is good, as we were talking a little bit about a TV commercial before and some of that stuff, which is smart. I'm sure that you do. You got to plan. You have to plan how long it's going to take.
Right. You might put a bid in for a project on new construction for, a big apartment complex. Okay, well, I put the bid in. We won the bid. Well, now that GC has to place an overall bid just to win the job themselves. So, let's say they win. Okay, they win. You're still easily 4 or 5 months away from, you being able to get in there and do what we need to do.
Yeah.
They still need to build everything before you can get in there. So it's really important to start building these relationships and start trying to win some of these jobs now, because 6 months from now, you're not going to have anything for 6 months.
Wow.
It takes a while for them to even get to that point where you can go in and start doing it.
That is interesting.
So, that's just one aspect you have to think about when it comes to that commercial stuff. Usually the residential stuff goes a lot faster.
Okay.
Usually customers they're calling you because they need you and they need something done right away.
Let me ask you this final question is, thinking about making that plunge, cashing out that 401k and say it's time to go for it. What advice would you have to someone looking into opening a small business right now or taking that plunge?
I think that's the way of the future, honestly. There's so much entrepreneurship going on out there, but I think a lot of people fail at it because the struggle is real. Mm-hmm. If you dump everything into the business, well, now you don't have any money for all that recreation, and you just have to have that mindset. Like, I'm here to build a business.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. People that have more experience than you. Don't be afraid to take advice. Don't be afraid to take criticism.
Very important.
Very important not to get butthurt over your criticism.
Yep. Especially again as a designer.
And it's hard because I get criticized for my stuff all the time. Of course, I have a visual product, but I always try to reason with the customer or whoever's giving me the criticism, and we'll meet in the middle.
Right.
And that's really important.
It's actually quite a skill to have.
Well, it's important in business.
Yes.
You have to know how to talk to people. And you have to know how to take criticism without blowing up.
Yep. The old saying of it's nothing personal, it's just business. That is what that means.
Right.
Right. You have to be able to, especially with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Someone might say, I'm not sure if I'm feeling that.
Yeah. A lot of guys, there's just a lot. Think about it. It's hard to take criticism.
Yes.
I don't care who you are. It's hard to hear it, but it's how you deal with it and persevere through it that makes you who you are.
Heck yeah.
You can't run away from it or cry or scream or, flip off the customer because you don't agree with them. You have to compromise. You have to figure it out. Luckily we don't have too many of those issues. Obviously, when you have two different people working together, something may happen. It's just part of life.
So there you go. Thick skin. Have a thick skin and don't take things personally.
Don't take things personally and take the plunge if you're just starting out, and take as much advice as you can and ask questions and try to talk to people, network. Think of some of those friends you might have that maybe you haven't talked to in a while that would know how to handle that situation that you might be in. Reach out to them.
There you go. Don't be afraid to do it. That is all good advice. This whole episode was just good advice. My man here, Adam Ridpath of Ridpath Metal Craft. Trust your rust. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Frank. We really appreciate it. I look forward to doing this again.
Heck yeah. Remember, Ridpath Metal Craft is open for business. What a great conversation with Adam. That was so good. Again, a humble artist because, he's just trying not to make a big deal out of himself, but I'll make a big deal out of him. And you should too by visiting ridpathmetalcraft.com. Also give him a like on Facebook, follow on Instagram at Ridpath Metal Craft. Even Pinterest has a whole bunch of stuff that he posts. So support this local businessman. As I thank my new friend Adam Ridpath from Ridpath Metal Craft for joining my network today. You've been listening to Open for Business. If you're a business owner that would like to be on the show, email fpowers@azlotus.com. For more information about this program or to listen to something you may have missed, go to the Sunday Mornings page on klpx.com, kfma.com, mixfm.com, crankthehanktucson.com, or espntucson.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever business podcasts are crafted. I'm your BFF, your best Frank forever, Frank Powers. Toot toot Tucson. I love you the most.